Dr. Emee Vida Estacio. Wonderful to have you, Emee. And I wanted to, I love the title of our discussion is Embrace Your Expertise, Elevate Your Brand, and Impact the World with Your Best-Selling Book. So welcome. And I'm going to read your quick bio. Emee is a 3-time #1 best-selling author, psychologist, and founder of Self-Publishing Made Simple. She helps successful entrepreneurs, coaches, and visionaries expand their reach by writing and publishing their books on the world's largest online book retailer, of course, Amazon. Through her online programs and signature 12-week Get It Done challenge, she guides her students through a proven self-publishing process to successfully launch a book on Amazon, even without a publicist. Every single one gets the same result: #1 Amazon bestseller during your launch week. And you can check her out on Facebook and connect with her tribe inside the Self-Publishing Made Simple community. So welcome to the show. I'm so excited.
Thank you so much. I have to say, Alexandra, I actually did come in early. I heard Yana speak and Dr. Anita. I just feel so blessed to hear everybody speaking, and I'm just so grateful that you've brought us together and share our message to each other. So thanks for having me, and hopefully I get to share my passion with your audience as well.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And you know, one of the things, I know we're going to talk about self-publishing, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. But one of the things that first originally brought me to your work was your work on imposter syndrome, was your books on imposter syndrome. So we'll get to that in a bit. But let's start with the book, because, you know, so I've written a couple of books and I've been part of collaboration books as well. I believe it is a powerful tool for sharing your message, for branding, as you know, as we said in the title of this talk. So key for all of those elements. I actually wrote my first book because it was completely divinely inspired. I got the idea in the middle of the night and I wrote it in 3 weeks. When I was in the process of writing a few other books, never finished those books. So it's just interesting. That was like, this was the one, this was the message.
It's like you got the download and off you go. It's inspired and it just takes you there.
Completely. So because you're a master at this, what are the benefits of self-publishing your book on Amazon? And so especially for us who are mission-driven entrepreneurs, what's that, why do we want to be on Amazon?
Of course. Well, first of all, by writing a book, it allows you to actually pour your heart and soul onto the pages of your book. If you are mission driven, if you have a message that you want to share with the world, that's your platform. It gives you the opportunity to really go in depth into what you have to say and spill it in the pages of your book. But in terms of growing our business and actually leveraging the power of Amazon, it's a really great way to raise awareness about your brand. There are millions of users on Amazon worldwide, so you're tapping into an international market. You let people know that you exist and what you stand for. But also with the book on Amazon, especially if you reach #1 bestseller status, it does elevate your brand with that bestseller ranking. And with that, you can also grow your mailing list. You can nurture your audience, nurture your readers, and turn them into warm leads eventually for your products or services. But with mission based entrepreneurs, especially with the kind of students that I attract in my tribe, they usually write their books because they have this sense of purpose that they want to share a message with the world. So for example, I have a student, she's a pet bereavement counselor, and she's on a mission to let people know that pet bereavement is a thing, that even if, for example, there may be people who will just brush off their shoulder when you say my dog died or my cat died, and they would think that it's not a big deal. My student was so passionate about disenfranchised grief that she had to write that book to let people know that if you are grieving for the loss of your pet, you need to be able to express that grief and seek support if you need it. So for us who are mission based, and if we have a message that we want to share with the world, writing a book, particularly launching it on Amazon, is a really great way to widen your reach and let the world know what you're about.
Oh, beautiful. I wanted to do a quick poll here. Who in our audience has either written a book or wants to write a book? Let's say in the short term, in over the next 6 to 12 months. Who wants to write a book in the next 6 to 12 months? Type it in the chat and let us know. I'd love to see. Um, yes, I actually have an unfinished book that I had started a few years ago, and I'm feeling called to revive it. So, all right, we've
Ooh.
got a few people who want to write their books, a few who are in the process of writing a couple of books. Excellent. All right. Yeah, I mean, it's a powerful way to share your message, and like you said, on Amazon. So the best selling status that I got for my books was through Amazon as well. So for those of us that aren't necessarily on the New York Times best selling list, but having that Amazon bestseller status is definitely a way to elevate you and your brand. So I definitely concur. So now that I know we've got a few people who are interested in writing their books or in the process of it, what are some of the first steps that that somebody who's interested in writing a book can do to get the book written and self-published on Amazon?
Oh, of course. I have to say, one of the biggest mistakes, if you like, that I've seen new authors make is they get excited about writing a book and they would say, okay, I'm gonna write my book now. And they will start writing. Good for you, Alexandra, that you managed to finish it within 3 weeks because you were inspired and you went for it. But there are some people who will go with that energy and it sort of fizzles, halfway through. Maybe urgent business matters happen or family priorities happen or you're just feeling tired. So you decided, okay, I'm not going to do this now. And then you put your book in the back burner. One of the things that I ask my students to do before they start writing your book is to clarify your purpose. Why are you writing your book? And when we talk about clarifying your purpose, it's not just about your personal purpose. Of course, it might be that you want to write your book to share your message, or maybe you want that extra passive income stream for your family. Maybe you want that expert status and grow your audience and build your brand. But you have to think about your readers as well. So that's another layer of purpose. Who do you want to serve with your book, and whose life do you want to touch and heal and serve with your book? When you clarify that purpose, it makes it so much bigger than yourself. It's not just about you anymore. It's actually about the people you're aiming to reach and serve with your book. And on top of that layer is what I call the ripple effect. So if you are helping someone, for example, to heal from childhood trauma, what would healing from their childhood trauma ripple into? Will that ripple into more loving and trusting relationships with their partners? Who's going to benefit? Someone else with you helping them through your book. So again, with having that clarity of purpose, when you have these moments where you doubt, I'm not sure if I'm good enough to write a book, or whether you're thinking, I'm not sure if it's worth my time, oh, this is too hard. When from the first step you clarify that, okay, I'm doing this because, yeah, I want to grow my business, I want to share my message. But if you go beyond that and understand that there will be people reading your book whose lives will be touched because you've written your book, it becomes so much bigger. And when you have those moments of you being human, it's normal to experience self-doubt and fear and imposter syndrome. That's normal. It happens. When you remember that your readers are waiting for you to write your book, and the ripple effect that it will have on their lives, or maybe in society in general. Maybe you want to open up discourse around race or discourse around mental health. Your book can be a really powerful way to get that message out and contribute to this wider agenda that we have in our society today. So start with your why and look at all the different layers of your why, and that will help you to stay grounded and help you to get your book done really hyper focused and have that energy running through your veins as you write, publish, and launch your book on Amazon.
Mm. So when I told you I wrote my book in 3 weeks, it was definitely divinely inspired. But I think what the impetus of that is I had just turned 30, and I think somehow I was, thinking, oh my gosh, what if I die? That really came up, there was that wasn't really logical. It's not like COVID was happening or anything like that. But what, for me, it was about leaving a legacy. I knew that my book could be a legacy. And if nothing else, if I died after the book was written, then I've left something, you know. That's not usually what people think when they write their book, but it was that was what was going through my head at the time. But I love when you saying start with your why, because and your purpose, because that is going to draw and really lead you in the right path. Oh, Nicola just said, I love you speaking on leaving your legacy. Yes, absolutely. And so I know that I fall under this as well. What stops authors or aspiring authors from getting their books done?
Oh my goodness, Alexandra, I hear this all the time. Most of my students are amazing and they are experts in their field. They know their stuff inside out. But what stops them from writing their books is this fear that they're not good enough, or that they're not expert enough, or this fear that people are going to judge them when they write their books. Sometimes they would say, okay, I don't have the time right now. I have other priorities, but that's actually just masking this fear that I'm not ready to take on this project yet. Let me deal with that later. Let me procrastinate, and it's because they worry that, yeah, the people will figure out that they're just fooling, that they're fooling them, that they are frauds. If they write a book, people will say, it's like, who do you think you are writing this book? So that's actually one of the biggest reasons I've seen aspiring authors make, no matter how knowledgeable they are, how many years of experience they have, or all the qualifications and expertise. That's one of the things that's pulling them back, is they're not really embracing their expertise. They're not recognizing the value of what they have to offer, and that stops them from writing their books in the first place.
Mm. I was just curious if anybody has any questions for Emee about writing their book. Make sure to put those in. We might be able to get to some of those before we finish with her now. So you mentioned imposter syndrome, and so as I alluded to earlier, you have written a lot about imposter syndrome. You have another book on that, and it definitely shows up with entrepreneurs, particularly female entrepreneurs. And so when we're trying to get our message out to the world, it could definitely show up, and I could see that that could be part of this fear and self-doubt that comes up. So what are at least one, maybe two ways that we can overcome or combat imposter syndrome?
Sure. Inside my book, I actually talk about the TLC technique. And when I talk about the TLC technique, we have to talk about the inner critic first. All this mental chatter that tells us that you're not good enough, you're not expert enough, you're going to fail, all this internal dialogue, if you like. And there may be some self help gurus that will ask you to crush your inner critic, to banish it, to have a fight. But what I would say is, don't try to have a fight with your inner critic, because ultimately that inner critic is a voice inside your head, but it is still your head. And if you try to have a fight with it, you're ultimately having a fight with yourself. So the TLC questioning sequence, although it doesn't actually stand for tender loving care, but I do encourage my readers to show a little bit of compassion, and try to treat your inner critic the way you would treat a child, someone that you care about, and someone who is afraid, and someone that you want to calm down. So with the TLC questioning sequence, instead of trying to silence your inner critic or have a fight with it and banish it, you listen to what your inner critic is saying and explore where those messages are coming from. And TLC here stands for, is it true? Is it logical? Is it constructive? So if you are telling yourself, I'm not qualified, I'm not experienced to do this, you have to ask yourself, is it true? Really? Because most of the time, it's not. If you really try to explore it, most of the time, the messages that we are telling ourselves, it's a lie. So if you're telling yourself, is it true that I'm not qualified? Have a look at the evidence. What experience do you have? What qualifications? What outcomes have you shown in your life that shows that you are qualified to write about this particular topic? So that's the first question. Is it true? The next question is it logical? So that and this one, I hear this a lot from my previous students. I used to be a university lecturer. I taught psychology at the university level. And when my students tell me that they've entered this new job, and they tell themselves, oh, I feel like an imposter. I don't have enough experience doing this kind of job. If you do the TLC questioning sequence, if you ask, is it true that you don't have enough experience, you might answer, yeah, actually, because you're new. It's true that you're new. But the L bit, is it logical? Just because you are new at this, it doesn't mean that you are a fraud. It just means that you're new. So it just means that you're starting at this stage. So that's the L bit. Just because you are starting out, or just because this is something new that you're trying out, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it at all, or it doesn't mean that you are a fraud. It just means that you are starting at this stage. So many entrepreneurs who have pivoted, or who have changed directions, of what they do because of COVID. Maybe they might be feeling this way. Oh, I've never done this before. Oh, I'm a fraud. Ask the question, L. Just because it is new to you, it doesn't mean that you are a fraud. So that's the L part. The C is, you have to ask, is it constructive? You have to ask, how is this thought helping me or others around me? So again, let me give you an example. I used to work with a teacher. She's a secondary school teacher, and she keeps what's the word I'm looking for? She keeps comparing herself to her colleagues. And she says, my colleagues are so amazing. They have a lot more experience than me, and they are fantastic with the kids. They're so much better than me. So you ask the question, is it true? Well, it might be true that they are more experienced. Is it logical? Well, yeah, they may be more experienced, so therefore they may actually be better than you. But the C part is it constructive? Um, Instead of feeling bad about yourself, what can you do to actually do to use this amazing abilities and skills that you're surrounded with? So if your colleagues are doing better than you, or if you can see all this good practice around you, it doesn't actually take the fire away from you. It just means that there's so much that you can learn from. You're surrounded by this amazing talent and amazing experience. Doesn't mean that you are a fraud. It just means that there's so much that you can learn from other people as well. So that's a C part. It's making it constructive instead of feeling bad about yourself. So the technique that I share my students is ask the question: is it true? Is it logical? Is it constructive? That way you can reframe the way you see things, especially if that inner chatter is really loud. And I have to say, sometimes if you try to do it on your own, it might not work, because some of these inner critic messages are so ingrained that we just hold on to it, and we struggle to reframe it. That's why it's really important for us to reach out to a mentor, a coach, or an accountability buddy, especially if we're struggling to see it from a different perspective. So TLC questioning sequence is something that I use a lot. But if you want a shortcut, particularly if you're someone who's thinking about writing a book, and you're thinking that, oh, I'm not good enough to write a book, the quickest way to do this is what I call the flashlight technique. And the flashlight technique is simply, you flash the light out. Instead of focusing on yourself, and focusing on your self-doubt. Oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not expert enough. Oh, people are gonna find out that I'm a fraud. You flash the light out and see your people, see your audience, see what they need, see how you can help them. And when you see that there are people who can benefit from what you know, even that little grain of knowledge or experience that you can share with them, you will be inclined to reach out and help them. That self doubt will wash away. It's not about you anymore, it's about your readers. So, for me and my students who are writing books, the TLC technique is great. But if I want a shortcut, I give them the flashlight technique and say, stop flashing the light on yourself, flash the light out, see your readers, see the people you're aiming to serve, and that self doubt will just wash away because it's not about you anymore. It's about the people you're aiming to serve.
So powerful. I love that. Yeah, and it's interesting. Part of the title is about stepping into the spotlight. You and I are spotlighted right now on Zoom. Interesting enough, but when it gets too much, when we begin to have those self doubts, we go back out and say, really, it's about shining on that light on others. It's about them, not. It's not about me. It's not about me. And because if it's too much into you, then I can see where those fears and doubts are going to come out. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Very
and then I
powerful.
have to say, Alexandra, when it comes to let me put my self-publishing hat on
Yeah.
again, taking off my psychology hat and putting on my self-publishing hat. When it comes to seeing your audience and understanding your audience, that's actually step number two for me and my students. Step one is understanding your purpose, but step two with my students is doing our keyword and market research. Because when you realize that it's not just about you anymore, and when you realize that your readers have hopes, they have fears, they have ambitions, they have frustrations, when you see them for what they need and what they want right now, you would be able to write a book that will serve them well. And when you are able to write a book that your readers need right now, it will be so much easier for you to position your book on Amazon and get to that number one bestseller spot. Of course, we have tools like research tools that I show my students on how to identify those research trends, if you like, on Amazon to identify what readers are looking for in your niche right now. But yeah, step number two, identify what your readers are looking for, explore what are their fears, their goals, their frustrations, so that when you start writing your book, it is informed by what your readers are looking for, and you will be able to write a book that will serve them well and something that will be so much easier to sell on Amazon because that's already something that they are looking for. So that's step number two. Step number one when we started was identify your purpose. Step number two is do your market research and your keyword research because that will inform how you're going to serve your audience and position your book on Amazon even before you start writing your book.
Mm, wow. And really that keyword research, I'm so glad that you mentioned this, and it sounds like your program is amazing. Um, but on top of that, it's that can actually help you. Doing that research will help you for your business or for anything else that you're selling.
Oh,
So
yeah,
that I can see how
absolutely.
powerful that really is. So sometimes we're so close to it that other people don't necessarily use the same words that we do or think the same way because we're so in it, we're so close to it. Or and then if we had to use a spotlight analogy again, we've got the flashlight in our eyes, we can't really see. But if we flash it out, it's like, oh, okay, the majority of people think this or they use these words or this resonates with them. So I can see how
Yeah.
powerful that tool
I
is.
have to say, Alexandra, just to give an example for one of my students, she initially published her book and she published it as Taming the Toddler because that's her brand, that's her business. You tame the toddler, da da da. We did our keyword research and market research together, and we found that people don't really want to tame their toddler because they don't really see their child as an animal. What we saw on the keyword research was that the parents wanted to stop yelling at their kids. They want to raise happy toddlers, they want to raise happy children, and they want to have the skills. They want to gain the parenting skills so they can stop yelling at their kids. So just having that insight into the market research helped my students to reframe her book. What was struggling, she was struggling to sell it on Amazon. When we just a simple reframing from taming your toddler to raising happy toddlers, and stop yelling at your kids, gain the parenting skills and stop yelling at your kids. That boosted her to number one because that resonated with
Mm.
what the parents are looking for. Same content, but just different framing. So knowing the research, knowing what your people are looking for, and optimizing, we call it optimizing your page to make sure that your readers will find it when they type in those searches on Amazon. Your book will appear because you've optimized your page. You listen to them and incorporated them in your book and the way you are marketing it on Amazon.
Wow. Okay, thank you for sharing that example because it's so valuable, and we're about to wrap here for now. But I wanted to offer your gift, or to say what your gift is. You're giving a mindset reset for authors. It's a 4-week online program to transform the way you think and feel about yourself, so you can write your book with confidence and embrace your true worth. And we just popped in the free gift link there, where the free gift is held. And before we end, I wanted everyone to write your key takeaways and send some love for Emee on what you've learned today, and any appreciation for her. And so I'll say my main takeaway for sure was the flashlight technique. I think that I'm going to be using that a lot more, and I'm going to be using it, and I'm going to be crediting you when I use it with and mention it to my clients and other people, because I think it's so powerful. Yes, exactly. Hearts, hearts, hearts. And so the other thing is, just to end, I wanted to ask, what advice would you give your younger self?
I have to say, Alexa, I am in Greece now, and in Greece, I hear people say "pame" all the time. "Pame, pame, pame." And I adopted that in my business as well. I call my business the "pame code," which means "let's go together." When I was younger,
Oh,
I just did things on my own. I wanted to be self-sufficient. I'll do that. I'm not gonna ask for help. I can deal with that. But having that mindset led me to my nervous breakdown. I got burned out in the process, and I realized that life is actually sweeter and more joyful, and you share your wins and your challenges with your community. Pame, we can go together. You don't have to do this on your own. Yeah, it's more lighter, it's brighter, it's happier when we share things together.
mm, I love that. Well, thank you so much for being in so much content. I mean, we did only had 30 minutes, but you managed to just jam it with incredible content, actionable steps, and I hope everyone will download or get onto your program, because I think it's going to be super valuable. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
For more help growing your visibility and monetizing your brand, go to alexanderfigueredo.com. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Thank you.